Thank you. So welcome everybody to the Astro Cafe. This is the Astro Cafe for January the 19th, 2026. We usually start just by asking if there's any new members that are attending the Astro Cafe. I certainly recognize the faces here. Is there anybody at the Fairfield room that's new?
Not
Okay.
new, but a long lost colleague, Clayton's here.
Well,
No,
welcome, welcome, Clayton. Um, That being the case, I think we'll start. And unfortunately, we're going to start with a little bit of sad news. John McDonald, who I think everybody knows of and is aware of, died on January the 17th. He was a physics professor at the University of Alberta from 62 to 2002, and then emeritus after that. He was active in RASC Victoria for about 20 years from 2005. He was a president here from 2008 to 2011. He was very involved in digital photography, astrophotography from the beginning, and certainly I came to know him through a number of his really spectacular photos. There is an excellent in memoriam that's on the RASC Victoria webpage that I think Joe Carr put together. I think there are some reminiscences and some information from some of the members here. So, Chris, do you want to start things off?
Sure, thanks, Jeff. I just wanted to acknowledge John's contributions to Astro Cafe as we're at Astro Cafe tonight. I met John when I joined the center as he was president at that time, and that was in 2010. And I probably really started to get to know him when we hosted the General Assembly in 2014, and he asked me to help out with the registration system. And so I did that and worked on, the e-commerce site so we could sell tickets and all that other stuff. At about that same time, the person who had been the primary host at Astro Cafe was posted away from Victoria. And one of the problems that can come up from being in the military. And so John stepped up to take over the hosting details, and following on from my having worked with him on a little chunk of the GA, I said I'd join him as well. So what I wanted to recognize in particular was Astro Cafe had been fairly kind of a happening more than, a more formal meeting. And one of the first things John said to me when we talked about what we should do is that he'd like to have more of a program and he'd like to have presentations given. And it's nice to see that legacy continue to this day because that started in the fall of 2014. And then the other thing that I would like to point out is we had often been looking at astro images and presentations on a 27-inch computer monitor in the room. And of course, that's pretty small. And John went to the council and said, could we have a television? And they, I think, agreed in principle at that time. So he went down to Atlas Audio and Visual with a stick full of astrophotographs and spent quite a bunch of time picking the right TV for us. And those of you who are in the room at Fairfield, you're probably looking at the Sony television that's on the left-hand side there. And that is the television that John picked. That was the one in its day that displayed, it was an early HD TV, I think, and displayed astro photos the best. And so John, had a legacy of moving us into a more modern format, and also having the talks, which I think we really appreciate, and they've certainly continued through the pandemic and to this day. And so I will miss him. He was an important member of our council. He hadn't been so active of late, but he was a name, and And just to carry on from what Jeff said, is just to point out that in addition to being a professor, he was Dean of Science, Vice President Academic, and then also acting President of the University of Alberta for a year. So
Wow.
he was a respected administrator at his institution as well. So John, we'll miss you.
Thank you, Chris. Randy, I think you had prepared some slides
Yes,
from his
yes.
previous work.
Let's just wait for it to come up. There we go. Yeah, so as soon as Joe's email came around yesterday, it really hit me. And he posted the Zenfolio collection of John's photos. And so I decided to spend yesterday morning just going through and getting to know a bit more about John. And it's really a lovely portrait, auto portrait that he gave of himself. So this was a picture he posted that he took of himself and of the Milky Way, but with him in front of it, in the newly formed VCO, Victoria Center Observatory. Anyway, the very, very first photo that is in his folder is the Cocoon Nebula. And he wrote, "This is my first attempt at the Cocoon region. It is an interesting setting with dark nebula Barnard 168 surrounding the Cocoon Nebula and trailing off to the west." Now, it's this line that I really like. "I continue to be amazed at how many beautiful things there are in the sky." And I love that. He very rarely editorializes. Most of his comments are just, what it is, where he was, what equipment. But you do see his appreciation in the photos. Here, he actually wrote about it. So this was 2007, and he's already clearly a very accomplished astrophotographer by that time. So 2008, this was his first astro image from the new Victoria Center Observatory. And I'm hoping that some people who were involved with that can talk about his involvement with this really central element of our club. Now, he lived very near here, just off Moss Rock, a bit south of Fairfield. And he had a great view of the sky. This is not showing how well he can avoid the city lights. I just like this photo to illustrate what his backyard was like with this picture of Jupiter and Venus from 2008. But he did amazing things for living in the middle of a city. This photo I am particularly attached to because when he downsized from his Fairfield house and moved to what's it called, Ross House, he downsized. And one of the things, he handed out his very nicely produced photos. So I have what is it? It's a 2-foot wide copy of this picture on my wall in the basement. Anyway, he took this from Yellow Point, so near Nanaimo, across towards Vancouver during the Olympics. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful picture. You can see the planes going by, but you see that's about an 8-hour exposure, it looks like. And I saw in Joe posted also images taken of John, and there's a picture of him receiving Astro Image of the Year for this photo. I think Laurie's handing him the prize. I included this picture, one, because there's a lovely moon in it, but also just to say that he did like going on cruises to do his photography. So this one was in Hawaii. And he went down to Oregon for the 2017 eclipse. And so this is a picture of, this was the middle of the day and it's dark because the sun is behind the moon. But he took the most remarkable high definition photo of the eclipse, the 2017 eclipse. That's technically an amazing, amazing photo of the not the photosphere, the coronosphere of the sun. He loved to go down to Gary's observatory in Arizona. Here's a picture of Laurie looking through the telescope, but in particular, he and Gary did a lot of work together from the Arizona Observatory. And Gary, you must really be missing him. So this is just one of many, many photos that Gary and John collaborated on from, I don't know, it seemed like he was down there every year after I joined in 2017.
He came down to visit with Wendy quite often because Wendy needed the sun, and it was a lovely time when they came down to visit us.
That's great. Yeah, so he moved to Ross Place, and this is an out of the world picture, isn't it? With that reflection off one of the buildings and the fog in the valley and that remarkable moon. Great, great photo taken in 2020. And then I'm not sure who all was on the ship. I know, Joe, you were on that same ship with him. I think Bill Weir was on the ship. Anyway, he took this excellent, what do you call it? Time lapse of the eclipse in 2024 off Mexico. And this is the last image that he posted to Zenfolio, just what, about 9 months ago. The Mars going through the beehive. And so that's just a very quick romp through his 800 and something photos that he has posted on Zenfolio. And they are all quality, beautiful pictures. He had a love of the hobby, of our community. He was a leader. He was a friend. And we miss him.
Thank you very much, Randy, for putting that presentation together so quickly. He did do a lot of remarkable photography. I don't want to rush through this part. Is there anybody else who has any reminiscences that they'd like to share of John or John's activities?
I'd just like to say how down to earth John was. He's always wondering, asking you how you were, and he was genuinely interested in it. And it was very impressive for a man of such capabilities and intellect to be so down to earth that he could relate to anybody. So it was quite lovely.
Yeah, he must have been quite a remarkable instructor.
Yes, I'd like to just add in that
Yeah, please go ahead.
he really was a gentleman. He was he never there was never a flaw in in that. He always had a good word to say about everybody. He always helped. He was kind. He was there if you needed him. He was the president before I took over as president and was just such a great mentor for me and was persuaded me that it's okay, Lori, you can do it. It's fine. Yes, you'll be fine. But he just was. I think he was just there for just about anybody who ever wanted any help. And I love the pictures with down in Arizona, and I was also with him at Monmouth. It was just he was just such a wonderful human being. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
have to jump in as well, saying that really, I think John, he was probably his private perspective that he shared with me as both former presidents he was very proud of being able to persuade a number of women in the group to start participating. And Lori was the sort of the headliner because she became president, but there were others as well. And that has really helped our Victoria Center all the way through to today, having a better representation of the population in our membership. Of course, he was also a very close friend of mine, and as was Wendy, and I traveled with them to various parts of the world, and we had a great personal friendship as well as sharing our astronomy passions and passions about photography, not just astrophotography, but all kinds. And we were both private pilots and loved aviation and all that sort of geeky stuff. And so we had a deep relationship. I'm going to miss him a lot.
Thank you, Joe. Margie, did you have something you wanted to say? You've either disappeared or moved on the screen here.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Um,
Yep. Thank you.
yeah, I knew John only through Astro Cafe when we were at the portable in that very small room, and John always sat at the front, and I just knew him as a kind, warm, grounded, quiet, peaceful man, and I loved that about him. Uh, Interestingly, I was in Berwick just about a week and a half before Christmas, seeing a friend, and I said to myself, I wonder if John McDonald is around. So I stood on the staircase and I looked over the group of people who were having lunch, and there was John. So I went down and spoke to him, and again, always his very kind self, interested in you, what you're doing, and just the presence of who he is, who he was, will be that's a big loss for us.
Thank you, Margie. Michael, did you want to say something?
Yes, I have a couple of things that are basically a thank you because I didn't know John very well. I met him at Astro Cafe, just like Margie did. But I bought something used from him and I went over to his house in Fairfield to pick it up. And there was this little red electric Bolt car. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. I think maybe Joe Carr had one at that time, but maybe nobody else." And by golly, an hour later, after pretty much going all over downtown Victoria and trying every option there was on that little Bolt, he arrived back at his home and gave me the thing that I came to buy. So he was a great, the warm side of his character just shone through, but he was a great salesman as well. One other thank you to him, and that is also from the Fairfield Astro Cafe. We went in there one time, and there, sitting by him, a person of his general age, which was probably about my age now, but it was probably 10 years ago, was an old prof of mine whose name was Al Turnock. And Al Turnock was a guy from the University of Manitoba who, if anything, was just too smart for this world. Just so smart that I'm amazed that he made it through. And as a sort of a dismissive punk of a kid in 1969, he probably recognized me as that. But John brought him over there, and I went up and introduced myself, and we had a wonderful talk between both Al and I, and John and Al and I, and it was just a wonderful reminiscence of a long time ago, and allowed me to say thank you to a great prof. And now I'm saying thank you to another woman who we've just lost. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Chris, would you like to say something?
Yeah, well, uh, I certainly had a lot of encounters with him over the years, and you know, I'm really sad that he's gone. I think we should also remember that Wendy just passed away a few weeks ago. Um, so in very quick succession, we've lost both of them. But John. Uh, I think in my comment, I mentioned that John came from Tabor, Alberta, where I was born. And a great experience I had was uh, my parents and I did not live in Tabor that long, but they lived there for a couple of years. And my father became very good friends with one of John's older brothers, and so it was a real treat when I got them uh, together to talk about the old days in Tabor. Uh, as for myself, I had a lot of discussions with him about particle physics, which is basically what he did. He's kind of an unusual person in that, you know, we're mostly dealing with astrophysicists, and here is a fellow who is a particle physicist and um, was immersed in that world, which is pretty amazing. It's almost kind of at the other end of physics from astrophysics, and um, I think his role in the Victoria Center is very important because he just happened to come along, and I think he was kind of learning himself at the time when people were able to obtain and afford and with some trouble figure out digital astrophotography. You know, I'm such an old fossil. I remember, you know, when you know everybody was hypering their Tri-X and all this stuff, dealing with photographic film, and then this whole new technology came in, and I think John was a real leader of that. Um, I that wasn't really a big thing for him. I've always sort of dabbled in it, but you know, I think I like writing about astronomy than being an astrophotographer more. But I'll always remember I was fortunate enough to be one of the first people in the RASC to get my hands on the Plasket telescope. We had a session up there in 2002. Um, and I imagine, you know, there were a couple of other folks here, probably David, who was at that thing, and we took these images, and of course they're black and white images taken through different filters, and then they sat around in my computer for several years, and finally, and I had always wanted to get them processed. So one day I went up the hill. I lived in Fairfield, fairly close to John. One day I went up there and spent the afternoon with him, and we processed these images, and it was most educational. It was quite helpful. Uh, I didn't know that a few years later I would be writing about the Hubble telescope, and that's a big part of the story of Hubble is the whole thing about digital photography. So And he became so good at astrophotography that the International Space University, which is it's a kind of a world institution that's was set up in Strasbourg, France, but they have annual sessions outside of Strasbourg in various parts of the world. And they had John come to several of their annual events to teach astrophotography to these young students. And I just got a note from somebody who was involved in that, just reacting to the emails that Joe and I were sending around about John, and he thanked me, and he said, "I'm going to make sure that the people at the International Space University find out about it." So anyway, and yeah, there's all those images that he took. I'm going to find it a little hard to imagine, getting a technical report from the VCO now without John being involved in it. He. That's why I really like that image that Randy was showing. I put it up on Facebook. This self-image of John at the VCO with the sky behind him. I thought that was great. He took some great pictures of that. Like that, including at a star party one night. He took one of me with the sky in the background, and I love that picture. That's anyway.
I'll show you my pictures so far. I'm not on camera.
I have a lot of memories of him, and I'm gonna miss him a lot.
Thanks, Chris. David, do you have something you want to say?
Oh, there we go. Oh, yes, I do. I actually, I'm a little bit shocked. We've lost so many people, and I, I think when I found out, I think a whole bunch of kind of images kind of flashed through my head, and I'm not quite sure why this happened. Um, but I kind of flashed back to probably the first time that I met John, and it was at a former Astro Cafe. Um, uh, Astro Cafe kind of originated, well, at least in my mind, originated back at Sandy Barter's kitchen in on Plowright in View Royal. But after that, after Sandy moved to Souk, Bruno hosted Astro Cafe for quite a while, and I kind of remember meeting John for the first time, kind of just in the entryway to the basement where Bruno kind of held cafe at that time, and I remember him showing me pictures of Hale Bop and various things that he's done, and I thought, well, that's amazing. We shared a lot of kind of imagery and kind of like the love of film kind of photography at that time. But through time, as many people have already shown, he became quite the master at astrophotography, running through the gamut of things like specialized digital SLRs that were used and various things. John typically had them really kind of early. I know he went through quite a number of cameras in his lifetime. But I'm most amazed, and I think people have already talked about this. I was most amazed about the shots that he took from Ross. Was it Ross? Can't remember the last name. Ross Bay. Ross what?
Place.
Ross Place, right? Ross Place. From his balcony. We've seen a couple of them tonight, and he was kind of out there, and I think he had like a 600 millimeter lens, and he was shooting these kind of moonscapes and such over the landscape, over the urban landscape. And as Joe mentioned, he was more than just an astrophotographer. I remember he would always have pictures of birds down in Beacon Hill and various places he's been. He was quite an avid photographer out at Cattle Point as well, of the night activity there. So he will certainly be missed. I think his time in our community is quite a large span. I guess we often fail to realize that, but a very important member gone. I miss you, John.
Thank you, David. Is there anybody else who'd like to say anything more about John or any other personal reminiscences?
Rich at the Victoria Fairfield Center.
Yeah,
If you can hear me,
yep, you're coming through.
I guess I first met John at an Astro Cafe, and I had such a warm welcome from Joe Carr and John at this event that before I knew it, I was on this tractor beam of much greater involvement in the Victoria Center. So that was great and a little bit sneaky. But John, as everyone mentioned, is had a very warm presence, and he was generous, and he was very knowledgeable, and he was a good mentor to me, and very encouraging. But one thing he was a very wise man, and I felt very grateful to be able to gain some wisdom from him, and I really appreciate that. And the other night we had our first VCO session of 2026, and many of you may not know about the pier for the telescope was dug by John McDonald and Sidhu. So I guess it's kind of a physical legacy of these two people. We're so very fortunate to have John as a member of our club, and I of course will miss him.
What was his role with the VCO? There's lots of photos of him during its construction.
I wasn't here at the time, but Joe Carr was heavily involved. Joe can.
Yeah, I mean, John was, the VCO was kind of a project that I saw. I was president at the time of getting members involved, and I was borne out by my intuition that this would be a uniting force. And it turned into that. And John, Sid, a lot of our older members just bought into this thing like you wouldn't believe, this project, and we're hammering nails and drilling holes and digging holes for this honking big pier foundation. They took it right down to bedrock pretty well and poured this elephant foot shaped foundation for the pier. And the pier, of course, is sitting there today and is rock solid because of those two guys. And they hand dug that hole. And those two guys were pretty old at the time, but they wanted to do it. And they got in there. And Sid, in particular, I have to say, was particularly enthusiastic. We were holding him by his legs while he was head down inside that hole, hauling out dirt. So yeah, it was a very fond memory. And John was involved in all of that, as you can see by the photos, construction photos in the VCO. It makes me laugh.
Thank you. Thank you all. Before I go further with the program, I should ask if there's anybody.
Oh, Jeff,
Go ahead.
Ben is here.
Oh,
Ben Dorman is here in the crowd.
okay. Ben, go for it.
I don't know if I hope you can hear me. And
Yep. You're just very back there, Ben.
I did want to tell you about the influence of John
Speak up.
McDonald on the Friends of the DAO. Back in 2015, the year we started up, I came to RASC Council twice. Once very near the beginning of the year, February or March, to tell you that we were planning to start up on the advice of people like Jim Hesser and other luminaries of the astronomy community, Victoria. We were planning to start up a public outreach organization, get the use of the visitor center at the observatory. And I was telling people about this, and I think schedule came. I went away.
Ben, excuse me, can you move a little closer to the microphone?
I then came back. I think it was in April or May, to say that we'd submitted some bylaws and we were starting to do this. And I just remember John standing up and saying, "What's taking you so long?" And I had that voice in my head for the next 2 years. I finally was very glad to get his approval a couple of years later when we were fully up and running. But I had John's voice in my head for all that time, making sure that we actually did this. And now we have very great star parties, which you all participate in, and we are ramping up even further now. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Ben. I should ask once more then, is there anybody else who has anything that they want to say? Yeah, I can see somebody in the room there, right at the back.
I'd just like to do a quick acknowledgement of his contributions to the Big High Astronomy program and helping us with finding equipment for astrophotography and giving presentations to the students and helping me personally with imaging. What struck me with his character was how humble a man he was for such a great mind, and you don't see that often in the physics department. That's all I I'll miss John Gray.
Thank you. Once more, is there anyone else who wants to say anything? Okay. Again, before I go forward, I haven't yet asked if there's anybody who wants to put anything forward this evening. I know we've had a couple of clear nights, so possibly there's some photographs that people want to show or other information. We'll come to announcements at the end, so don't worry about that. Photos at all that I should put on the list? Okay.
Yes, Vince said something.
I'm just trying to apply the last stretch to it.
Okay, are you on or?
Oh,
I mean,
I'm not sure how to share it.
I'm not sure who's, oh,
No, I'm just physically here.
can you put it on a on a memory stick? Okay, so Vince's going to give me an image. So have somebody else talk, and then I'll show what Vince has to show.
Jeff,
Can I just hang on for 1 sec before we launch into that? I was just looking to put people on the program. I know David has something he wants to.
Great,
to
thank
start
you.
with. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Oh, okay. Well, Lori, I just want to let people know, Lori and I went out to Sid's place recently, and I don't know, maybe in Lori's words, nobody needs to buy anything anymore. I don't know if I'd go that far, but yes, I was shocked by how much stuff there actually is at the residence, and wow, I mean, there was stuff there that I had forgotten about from decades ago, but it was there. So yeah, I just want to let people know that we will be going through a lot of telescopes. Lori, can you estimate how many telescopes there were out there?
I'd say there was probably 25
Yeah, at least,
at
actually.
least. Yeah. Yeah.
So in one way, this is information, and in other ways, I would like to maybe even get even more volunteers come help us sift through a lot of this stuff. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of raffle scopes out of that. That set of equipment that's out there. But there's also legacy stuff that's out there, and I don't know who out there remembers the mirror making initiatives of this center from, I don't know, what do you think the time period would have been, Lori? I think maybe, or anybody else that's here. I think it goes back to even before my time. I mean, I joined, I think, in 1994. So this would have been, I actually talked to Sandy today, and I think it at least goes back to that time period, maybe in the 90s or the late 80s.
If I'm not mistaken, David, wasn't that the purpose of the Astro Cafe originally? Was a group of people getting together to make mirrors?
I determined that, and I was probably chastised many times by Sandy this morning. I'd forgotten about a lot of the stuff. I didn't even know that, or I had forgotten that the mirror making took place in her basement, and then I started having these memories, and I thought, did your basement look like this? And then I suddenly remembered. I remembered the columns where people had the mirror blanks and stuff. And then she said, "Don't you have a mirror blank that you never finished?" And I said, "No, Sandy, I bought my mirror." you know, and yet, no, I still haven't completed that telescope, by the way. Um, yeah, yeah. So there's lots of stuff there. So anybody out there that is interested in mirror making and stuff, or knows somebody that is, there's just so much stuff there. There's bottles and bottles of abrasives. I think there's a number of uh, sort of optical test kind of benches, and there's even a machine. And I think we determined at first. I thought it was like a mirror, a pure mirror maker that would cut the curve and stuff, but again, Sandy told me that it was no, that was basically a machine that could. She said hog out. They call it hogging. Hog out the majority of the mirror so that it's ready for putting a curve in, which you would have to do either manually or have another machine. There's also a vacuum chamber. I don't think it's functional. But lots of stuff. So if you're a tinkerer and you might be interested, get a hold of me. Maybe we can find a home for some of these things. I don't anticipate that we're gonna be able to sell everything. I'm hoping that people that are starting out might be interested in some of the telescopes. And as I say, we have enough probably raffle scopes for a while. I think. Does anybody have any questions about this whole initiative? It's actually quite a large one in actual fact. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, and there's a lot of implications in terms of how we proceed in the future as well. As probably many of you know, we don't really have much storage space, but we have a lot of potential donors and things like that. So we're going to have to figure out what we keep and what we don't, and what we will receive and what we won't. So, Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, David, is this all stuff that belongs to RASC Victoria, or is it some of Sid's
Yeah, so
stuff?
that was part of why Michael, who is Sid's son, concerned. He wanted to know what was ours, so to speak, as in the Victoria centers, and but also he wanted to know what we want, some things that we did or didn't want to keep. In fact, Lori has boxes of books and magazines from the observatory at his place. So Lori, you probably haven't had time to look through them all, but
No, no, not yet.
no,
But I've
there's
got
boxes and
boxes
boxes. Yeah,
of
yeah,
books, and I'm going
yeah.
to, what I'd like to do is with the books is Alex, I'm going to need to have you come and have a look at what we have, and if there's anything that you'd like or that we think you need, that we'd need for the library, that would be the number one thing. And then have the books put out so that people can possibly take what they would like. And I was talking to David today and saying maybe what we should do is have some sort of a donation fund, a Sid estate donation fund of some kind, so that if I don't know, put a toonie in, if you take a book to, put in a toonie, and we could, use some of the funds for getting some other things. But I just there's a lot, and it's going to take months to be able to put everything together. But I will come one time to Astro Cafe with books, and so people can pick up what they need. And I just wanted to say, Ben, I think you said you wanted to get some new eyepieces. Don't buy anything until I talk to you, because there are eyepieces galore that are in boxes everywhere in Sid's place. So let's have a look at those before you go and buy anything.
Are you going to be able to put together a list?
Well, you know that again, I got a great,
Eventually, Jeff.
yeah,
Is it just
again, I got a
yeah.
great tip from Sandy this morning, and I don't know, I, I I have a feeling I don't think very much. So she said, "Well, why don't you why don't you go through the stuff, figure out what you want people to know about, and make a website or something like that."
Mm.
And I thought, well, that's a great idea. I took some initial shots, but you know what I would really like to do, and I was saying, um, for those of you who know me, I'm a photographer outside of astronomy as well, and there was quite a number of photographers that had the style of taking people and objects and setting up a set of light stands with backdrops out in these obscure regions of the world, right? And very simply placing the subject matter right in the middle. And I think one of them was a fashion photographer by the name of Richard Avedon. And I said, Sandy, you know what I need to do? I need to take some backdrops out to Sid's place, and then we'll take all the telescopes out and take portraits of them. And she said, yes, that's a great idea. So I don't think I'll go that far, but I think I'll take nicer pictures. So I'm gonna need some help from people to as we peel away the layers, and no lie, in the storage area, I would say there's like 12 to 15 feet deep, and there are telescopes stacked only separated by, I don't know, like 4 or 5 inches.
Millimeters.
Millimeters. Okay. Okay. I can't estimate anymore either. But yeah, so I would like to sort of peel away layers of it and bring the scopes out, have an initial scan at them to see if they need any TLC and such, and go at it from there. And it's going to take us a while. Absolutely, it's going to take us a while. Joe, I think you were next.
Yes, I have an awkward question to ask.
Yes.
What is the timing needed
Oh,
for
well,
this?
I have some.
Obviously we have people
I
living in the
know,
house
but
and we have
I have some.
estates and all that stuff.
I have some really good news. The family doesn't plan, or at least Michael doesn't plan to leave the place, so they're not going to
Okay.
sell it or anything like that. So I think that's kind of good news for us, at least for the time being. But I certainly don't want to outstay our welcome either. They've been very gracious to have housed this for decades, right?
Yeah.
And I
That's
think,
my concern more than anything is
yeah,
imposing on the Sidhu family.
no, I think, Lori, when you say we have a very good relationship with the family,
Yeah.
so I don't
Yeah.
think that's a problem. I think,
Yeah.
Okay.
you
But
know,
I think our time is like less than a year.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
say so.
I
Yeah.
would say that we should probably do that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have some initial plans. I do have kind of a diagram in my mind of various routes of relocation, whether they are relocated to people's homes or relocated in various places, maybe to schools or other places that might take these things. Various things. And of course, uh, ultimately, perhaps sales of some things, and then disposal if it's not of any use to anybody, right?
Gary, did you have
Gary, I think you were next, I think.
Alrighty. The mention of some of the more unique stuff is really quite cool for a hoarder like me who loves gadgets. So I would put it out on the RASC saying we have a vacuum chamber. I bet you we could get rid of that sucker pretty fast. And have it
Okay.
go to a good home. Things like that would work, I think.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's a great idea. CJ?
Yeah, I would be more than happy to give you a hand for going through to assess the state and the items to the list or the mechanical, electrical, even the vacuum chamber. If you said it's not functional, I can have a look at it. And a functional vacuum chamber can for sure interest people. And yeah, I'd be more than happy to give you a hand.
Well, that's wonderful, and that's what I was hoping, and I knew you guys would, all of you would come through on this one, and it'd be a great thing if we could make use of this legacy of equipment that we have. I'm not the kind of person that would easily throw something away, so I think, yeah, I think there's some good stuff there. Plenty of eyepieces. Yeah, I think we could. The other thought I had when I talked to Lori is with the star parties that are going to start appearing through the summer, that we would take some of these telescopes and if they were very close to being very workable and usable, we would take them out and kind of adopt them for a period of time and bring them out onto the parking lot, use them, during star parties. And maybe somebody might be interested and it might
Take
find a
them
new home.
home.
Take them home. Yeah, take them home.
Margie?
Margie.
Yes, I was also wondering if the astronomy department at UVic, if any of the students there, if that might be an option for accessing telescopes for
That's a
them.
possibility. I think they have plenty right at the site, but I'm just wondering, I can't imagine grad students are that wealthy, so maybe they could use a scope. Who knows? Yeah.
Thank you, David, for doing that. We
Yeah, no
have
problem.
we have a long delayed presentation that I'd like to get to. Just before I do, is there anybody that I should put on the list for bringing something forward after the presentation? Randy, was there somebody there that?
Well, no, I have a picture that Vince just emailed me to show off that. Did you just take this
Are
one
you
of
okay?
these?
This one I just
Can you
finished.
delay that? I just want to get to the presentation. That's
Oh, yeah. So later.
yeah. Okay,
Just,
that's great.
I also just wanted to add on Sid's equipment. I'm very interested in getting that vacuum chamber going. Not only can I probably get it going, I can also give it a home because I can more likely locate it at Makerspace where we could still access it.
Oh, fantastic.
So
Great.
Cool.
That's awesome.
I didn't think I'd hear that, but that's great news.
Yeah. So, RASC members, as everybody knows, travel to various places. One of the people that has traveled is Chris Pearce, and he has been wanting to tell us about his travel to New Zealand. Chris, are you able to take over there?
Yeah, there we go, I think. Let me just make sure that's there. Hopefully oh no, maybe it's not going to behave itself. So let me just move.
Can certainly
Let me
see.
move it on my screen so I can see it properly, because of course it's the buttons don't seem to want to. There we are. Okay, thanks very much, Jeff. You may have noticed I was gone for a while, and we managed Christian and I managed to get away for a bit of a holiday in at the end of last year. So we were gone for about a month. Christine and I have reached that age where we're kind of fitting things in between specialist appointments. And so she had a referral that she was waiting to hear about. And she got that appointment in October. So I quickly got to work and started booking things. And we were off to New Zealand on the 9th with about 20. I think I had booked about 23 or 24 things by then. So. And luckily kept track of them on a spreadsheet because I didn't want to find us without a place to stay for a night or, a gap or a doubling up or something. So basically our goals, we wanted to take the three scenic railways that they offer in New Zealand. New Zealand has a very extensive railway network, although they don't use it for passengers anymore. So they're trying to bring that back by having tourist trains. So they have 3 of those routes so far. They're working on some more. We wanted to see both of the islands and see a chunk of them. And obviously, we wanted to see some of the native birds and plants. As many of you know, Christine also does fiber arts. And so we wanted to find some wool and fiber because there's more sheep in New Zealand than people, as you may have heard, and that is in fact true. And we wanted to find out about Maori culture and the history there. And astronomy-wise, my main thing was to see the Magellanic Clouds. I think Chris Gaynor had mentioned something similar about being in Australia. And I really wanted to see those. So just to point out on this map, I hope you can see my pointer. Unfortunately, Google My Map doesn't know about these train routes. So this one here is the Transalpine route between Christchurch and a place called Greymouth on the west coast. This one is called the Coastal Pacific, so it goes between Christchurch and Picton. Picton is the place where the ferry terminal on the South Island. And then this Northern Explorer goes from between Wellington and Auckland. We had assumed we would kind of do the North Island things first and then head to the South Island. But because almost all international flights arrive in Auckland, that train actually going south, the Northern Explorer, is booked up for months. So we booked this trip very quickly, so we just didn't have time. So that turned the trip on its end, and instead of doing it the way we thought we would, we actually flew to the South Island and started down in Dunedin. So that is where our adventure begins after 2 nights in Auckland to kind of decompress and get over a long flight. We then took another airplane and flew down to Dunedin. And so I just remind us what the Magellanic Clouds are. So they are these 2 irregular dwarf galaxies, and this is a really nice, much better than any photograph I got of them, a really nice photograph that is on the European Space Agency Hubble site. And just point out that there's quite a strong bar in the center of the large Magellanic Cloud and a bit of a spiral away from it where it's interacting with the Milky Way. The small Magellanic Cloud is much, much smaller and fainter. And unfortunately, most of the places we visited in New Zealand weren't that dark. So, as I was to find out. So this is a collection of photographs and things I found along the way. We don't necessarily plan in detail what we're going to do in each place. So many of the places sort of happened on a day-by-day basis. We just go out and say, well, what should we go and look at today? And we find some things. So anyway, so first thing I want to show you is the sundial I found in the Dunedin Botanic Garden. It turns out that many of the cities in New Zealand have a botanic gardens, and these are generally spectacular. If you like gardens, these are just magnificent, and they have rose collections, most of them that we went in, that rival Butchart Gardens, for example. And the beauty of these botanic gardens is they're free. There's just there on the street somewhere, and you can walk right into them and see these things. I like sundials, so I was interested in seeing this one. And of course, hopefully you can see my pointer. The gnomon rises to the south, unlike ours that rise to the north. And because the sun, of course, always rises in the east and sets in the west, that puts the daytime hours on the southern side and the afternoon, or the morning hours, I should say, and then the afternoon hours on the east side. As the sun moves across, it puts the shadow into the opposite direction. What this means is that the hour numbers go in reverse. So in the northern hemisphere, these are the morning hours. This would be where noon is, and then this would be the afternoon. So the hours progress in a clockwise manner. In the southern hemisphere, because it's got to be put on the same side, the hours progress in a counterclockwise manner. So I thought that was quite interesting. I wanted to see how that worked. This one appears to date from 1924 and has a heck of a lot of information. about various things and about how to correct the time. But of course, it's only in standard time. And when we were in New Zealand, it was daylight savings time was being observed. So this is my first attempt. We had a clear evening. I was going to say that was a strange day on November 15th because in the morning I was able to get a picture of a sundial with a cloud, a shadow on it. By midday, clouds were moving in, and we actually had about 10 seconds of hail later in the afternoon. So, and then it cleared again. So we're in the city. And I thought, well, I'll go out and have a look and see what I can see. And you may or may not be able to see this in there, so I include Sky Safari, but here is where the large Magellanic Cloud is and the small Magellanic Cloud is down here, again, much fainter. And where I'm looking at on my monitor, I can just see a little bit of this bar. So again, it's not very bright in the city lit, in the city lights. I did want to point out that Canopus up here is the second brightest star after Sirius. Ashenar, which is this one here, is actually the alpha star of Eridanus, the river. And we see the northern end of Eridanus, and there it is, it's the southern end. So I thought that was quite interesting because that is a very long, skinny constellation and kind of finds itself at Orion's feet if you look at the star map. I took another picture and fiddled around with the processing to try and match the flag because the other constellation or a constellation I really like is Crux. And at this time of the year, Crux is a circumpolar constellation in I think most of New Zealand. And so at this time of the year in the summer, it's in the southern sky, which means it's reversed from the orientation that's on the flag. And I just found this my first photograph of Crux, which was taken in Hawaii, low on the southern horizon. And I was pleased to see it again. This is Alpha Centauri, by the way, which is one of the closest stars after Proxima Centauri. Centauri is one of the closest stars to our solar system. So I believe it's just over 4 light years away. Anyways, it was nice to see Crux. Crux appears on quite a few flags, including, of course, both Australia and New Zealand. We later on, so we picked up a car and we were driving around across the South Island to get up to where the west end of the train route, and we ended up finding this place that's actually part of an orchard, and you may be able to see some cherry trees down peeking over in the bottom edge of this photograph. And this was a really nice dark sky site because we were outside the town. But unfortunately, as you might be able to see on the buildings, they had, so all of these were 1-bedroom cottages, by the way, or little mini buildings, bigger than a small house, but not very large. And they had put 10 of them in, I guess, to diversify their economy in the orchard. And those are the cherry trees over beyond there. And in front along the edge of the highway, they had the thing that they called their fruit stand, which was actually a grocery store, well, a fruit and vegetable store. So they didn't sell only their own products. It was interesting to find out that fruit stall is actually on bus tours. And so one day when we were up there, there were 2 tour coaches there, and the people were off the coach buying ice cream and fruit and fruit from the stall. But anyways, here is Orion. Notice the orientation of Orion is very different from what we see here, and Sirius, and then some of the southern constellations like Lepus up over here. And actually, this is the other end of Eridanus, where it wraps around the sky and comes up underneath and right beside Rigel. And that's its beta star right there. which turned out to be interesting. So unfortunately, that they had a housekeeping building there that shone a big light, kind of like the ones that they have at the Fairfield Center there. And that's, I think, a lot of what this light is, and the light on the buildings. And of course, unfortunately, the camera picks it up. But I did manage to zoom in a bit and get, this is probably my best image of the Magellanic Clouds, and certainly you can see that bar in the center. This was a handheld exposure, so unfortunately around the edge, I guess it wasn't quite as still as I needed to be, but and that was looking away from that light, but the light was still there, and I tried to tone it down as best as possible. But there you go.
Did you see to say these photos were done with an iPhone?
Yes, yeah, an iPhone 16, yeah. So it is a newer iPhone, but not newest, and certainly not a 17. Yeah, so we carried on driving out more towards, and we had to go, we went through the mountains on the South Island there because, and the train goes back through the mountains on a different pass. And so we got out to the West Coast, and I picked a place called Fox Glacier because you can see Mount Cook, which is the tallest mountain in New Zealand, and it's down here on the South Island. And the day we arrived, of course, which is the 19th of November, this is what we were met with, and in fact, it got worse and worse. But on the morning of the 20th, it was clearing, but as I said, beware of these clouds coming in from the Tasman Sea, which is, this is a photograph was taken looking north. The Tasman Sea, which is the sea between New Zealand and Australia, was to our west there and not very far away, less than 20 kilometers away. So when it got to this clear point, I went outside, and lo and behold, I could see Mount Cook over the roof of our hotel, another wing of it there. And these are the only two photographs I actually managed to take, because within the hour, of course, these clouds were coming back in that you can see on the edge, and Mount Cook was gone again. We went, because we were having a short driving day that day, we went to a nearby lake to walk around, and we met two couples from the North Island who had come down, and one of the things they specifically wanted to see was Mount Cook, but they hadn't stayed in Fox Glacier, and so by the time they got there, it was a wall of cloud again. So thus is the weather and life you can find yourself with in New Zealand. So funnily enough, they were asking us, at least one of them had been to Vancouver Island at some point, and they asked if we thought that lake reminded them of a lake here, and we had actually been talking, Christy and I have been talking about that, and it's funnily enough, we said, oh yeah, actually this isn't dissimilar from a lake, and we decided it was kind of like Lake Matheson, out in the Chosen. And would you know it, the name of this lake is Matheson. Kind of crazy, really. But anyways, so we had a short driving day, as I mentioned, and so later the day, I happened to look straight up and saw the Large Magellanic Cloud there as I was going into the motel room. So I quickly backed back out and took a photograph of it, because we should have arrived in Hokitika at about 3 in the afternoon, and we didn't get there till 11 because it took us 10 hours to drive 134 kilometers. And what happened? Well, we left Fox Glacier, went up to Franz Josef, which is the next community, to have lunch. And we were using Apple CarPlay, and so we had the map up on the car. And about half an hour outside of Franz Josef, heading north, it suddenly told us to do a U-turn and head south. And I noticed it was busy recalculating the time to our hotel, and it suddenly told us, instead of I think it was about an hour and a half, it had been, and all of a sudden it was telling us that our hotel was 12 hours away. And what Google's Maps wanted us to do was to basically turnaround, and U-turns are legal in New Zealand, so you can legally do that, unless it tells you you can't, and drive basically all the way we'd driven that day and the previous day, and then drive a whole bunch more up parallel to the mountains and then come over another pass. So I quickly got on our another one to try and find out why it was telling us to do that. And it turned out there had been a 3-car collision up near our hotel about 20 minutes before our hotel. And there were 8 people with various injuries, some quite seriously, serious enough that 3 air ambulances were brought into the site. And 2 of the most seriously injured people were flown to Christchurch, which I guess has their big trauma unit. So we got up, we decided to carry on and drive up and join the line and see what was happening. And so they said to us they didn't know when the road would reopen. And of course, we're sitting there in a car with no food and, worst of all, no bathroom. So we decided to go back, turn around and go back to the nearest town and see what we could find. And shout out to the people in Hare on the west coast there, because we got to the little cafe there that was supposed to close at 4, and I think we arrived at about 5 to 4. And I went in and I said, you know, what's happening? Do you close at 4? Because Google had been wrong sometimes in the past in New Zealand. And they said, oh no, we'll stay open until the roads open again, and we'll feed people and give them a place to stay. And later on, they announced that another group had opened the community hall, and they had coffee, tea, and biscuits, as they called them, cookies on hand. So we had a place to rest and stay for the whatever it was, about roughly 7 hours we were stuck there. And so coming up to about 9 o'clock, I noticed a tour coach head north on the highway. So I thought, aha. They're not going to go up and sit at a roadblock. So I had a look, and sure enough, the road was open to single lane alternating traffic. But we did see 2 of the cars, and they'd of course had the roofs cut off, and it was quite a mess. New Zealand is car country, and I think, you know, most visitors end up renting a car. But of course, most of us come from places where you drive on the right, not the left. And my suspicion is that somebody had been somewhere on a side road and then pulled onto the main highway, and of course ended up on the wrong side of the road. Anyways, so we got up, we returned the car, we got on the train, had a wonderful journey through the Arthur's Pass, and as a place in the spectacular canyons. The train goes through some very interesting tunnels and across viaducts and through some, as I said, some canyons. And so it's it is very scenic. So we arrived in Christchurch, and a couple of days, I think it was almost the next day, we were walking around downtown, and I looked at the plan of the botanic gardens there and found out this magnetic observatory was there. And so I was wondering, well, what's that all about? So this is the only remaining building. I've got some notes on the next page, but this is where a bunch of Arctic research, or Antarctic research, I guess I should correctly say, was done, and served both the Scott and Shackleton quests into Antarctica. One of the problems, of course, in the pre-GPS era was you did rely on a compass. And because the South Magnetic Pole is moving around, and it's between New Zealand and Antarctica, having a very precise knowledge of where it is was important. So both teams came to this spot, although not this building, because this particular building wasn't put there till the 1940s, and it's the last remaining building. This exhibit was opened, I think, in 2022, and again is operated by the city council because it's in the Botanic Gardens, as with a large rose collection and native plants and various other things. Sorry. So here are some of the notes on it. Oh, sorry, 2021 for that one. And yeah, so this was a very important site. I took some pictures inside. It's this is a replica of what the office in the Magnetic Observatory looked like. Of course, it's not the real one because that building's gone. But this is what you'd maybe expect to find there. There are also some exhibits on Antarctica, including modern research being done because this is still a center for Antarctic exploration and support. Some of the prominent citizens in Christchurch lobbied primarily the colonial, well, I guess I should say the British authority, because there was the initial plan was to put all of this in Melbourne in Australia. And so they actually pointed out that they're closer to Antarctica here. And it made sense to have, and this is a major center in New Zealand. It's the second largest city. So it made sense. Here is a map that's there, and this is one of the instruments for pointing to where the where you can find the magnetic pole, and this just shows you some things like, for example, Christchurch was here, and in 1909 the magnetic South Pole was there in Antarctica, and in 1990 it had moved by then to move to there. And they have one of these rotating compasses, so more for education to show that a lot of people don't use compasses now, so to show people what it does. And when you move the compass around, how the arrow keeps pointing in the same direction. They've also taken the opportunity to include some information about Maori sky knowledge and the vocabulary. Maori is playing much more of a role in modern New Zealand. So, for example, it was not unheard of to have shows start on Radio New Zealand with the speaker introducing themselves in Maori as well. So, and this is kind of hard to see because unfortunately the ground was wet because it had been raining that day. It was not clear skies. And of course, I found another sundial, and I kind of hard to see again because of the rain on it. But this one has a plate down here on the ground to show you how to alter the time on the that you see on the face of it, but again in standard time. They note that. So again, that was in a different area in the Botanic Gardens. It's quite a lot in that Botanic Gardens, including some tropical plant houses and, as I said, a rose garden and some sculptures. The other thing we found in Christchurch was that there's this Christchurch Museum pop-up, and this happens to be a chunk of meteorite from the Canyon Diablo meteorite. And so this is the largest chunk of that meteorite that's not in the United States. And see, they've had it since 1897. Just to note that many of you know Christchurch suffered a fairly significant earthquake in 2010 and actually a slightly less powerful earthquake in 2011, but the positioning of the 2011 earthquake left a lot of damage in the central, as they refer to them in New Zealand, the central business district. And there are still probably probably a good third of the buildings that were damaged haven't been repaired. And it's not uncommon when you're walking down the street to suddenly have a gap with a gravel pad that you're probably using for parking because that's the site of where a building was torn down. And the place we were staying was basically like an Airbnb condo. And we were actually in, I would say actually a light industrial area. And obviously the building that had been on that site didn't survive the earthquake, and they've decided to turn that into housing. So the property next door was in the process of having another bunch of these condos built. So it was quite interesting to see and see that, and to walk through a city where there's numerous buildings, including major public buildings like the Christchurch Cathedral that have not been repaired yet, and probably still years away from being repaired. Okay, so we move on from the train, we go up to Picton, across the Cook Strait on the ferry, and we find ourselves now in Wellington. Wellington is the capital of New Zealand, as many of you know, and this again is in the Wellington Botanic Garden, and it's operated as one of the Wellington museums. They have quite a few different things, and so this is the one space museum that I went to. This one has the Carter Observatory on the right, and there is another dome there that isn't public, and then the planetarium is the dome that's on the left. We were lucky that often the Carter Observatory isn't open, but somebody had arrived to help with some things and opened it for a while and gave us a brief explanation. And they have this very historic telescope, something like our old brass telescope, but they're still using theirs, and it is a very large telescope. As you can see, it's roughly a 9-inch refractor. I estimated it as about an F-15, and so it started off life in parts of England, and then was bought and moved to New Zealand, and then the Wellington City Council bought it, I guess as part of the estate sale, and then this observatory was built for it, and there it is. What's interesting is, hopefully my pointer shows up, this is the clock drive, and that was not an original piece. That was added in 1879, and these are some of the parts of it. So it's one of these spinning flywheel devices with a weight below that is powering it. And interestingly enough, it drives one of these, I'm not sure actually what the term is, but some of the members in the center have had an AstroTrack mount, and it had that similar sort of drive. So this one you have to reset approximately every 20 minutes. So it runs through its direction, and then you quickly lift it off and move it back to the other end and let it run again. And it's apparently, according to the fellow who was telling us about it, it's very accurate. So they added a very large guide scope to it. So I figured this is would be a very good solar system telescope. And I guess the size of it allows some beyond solar system too. On our way, so after we seen the planetarium show, we decided to go to lunch, and there was we saw there was a cafe beside the Rose Garden in the Botanic Garden. And we walked by this building, and it's very interesting that that's no longer used for as an observatory, and in fact was renovated to be rental space for, I guess, rented out by Wellington City Council. But it's still the historic designation, and this was where they did some observations primarily related to timekeeping. And so we went down, and it turned out we went down a very steep hill, not uncommon in New Zealand. As you possibly notice, we're already up a hill from downtown Wellington, and then notice there's still more land above us over here. And so the path down to the Rose Garden was quite steeply down, and we were kind of thinking, oh boy, we're going to have to walk back up this. But we found a different route. And nearby the Rose Garden down there was another sundial and a herb garden. So being this, I like sundials, I took a picture of it, and so there it is. And then we went back up to the space place, and there you can see the one of the observatory domes, and Christine's modeling this sundial, which is of course human powered, something like the one that's down by the breakwater in Victoria. What I thought was really neat is that these number plaques are bronze, and they actually go and move them twice a year so that the time remains accurate. So they adjust the sundial for daylight savings time. So that's kind of fun. And the other thing that's outside the front of the space place, although I think it's a little bit worse for wear, is they have a solar system garden. And I like this, particularly the topiary Saturn looks quite interesting. They've got something that's Jupiter that looks a bit reddish around the edges of it. And so that's on one side of the door. And then on the other side, there's Mars, Earth, Venus, and Mercury. Again, it looks like it needs some TLC, but I guess they're doing other things in the garden.
Who is hanging from the background?
Oh, so if let me just flip back. That was part of this poster here. So that's their space place poster. So that's looking at the feet of this person here that we didn't see. And this is where the garden is here and on this side. So it's their big banner advertising the space place. Okay, so I moved on. We got on another train and went north, and this time we're much closer up towards Auckland and in another city, Hamilton. And so I got a picture of the moon. Certainly, I found with the iPhone does not take good pictures of the moon when it's dark, but it's not too bad when it's daylight. So this was in the late afternoon. We went out to a place where we were going to have good views of the sky, but of course it's very light polluted. Again, Hamilton's a fairly large city, and we were in kind of the middle core area there. And so, but here's my favorite crux again. We basically could not see the Magellanic Clouds there. But one thing I did get a picture of is the Matariki cluster here, what we know as the Pleiades. And I thought this was kind of neat because I got Uranus right here, which I thought was kind of neat. And there's the equivalent of what we're seeing on Sky Safari. So I thought that turned out quite well. Okay, so we went back up to Auckland, and then there's no photographs from Auckland because we didn't do anything astronomically there. And of course, it's a huge city, so not really any dark skies. So the last place we went to was a place called Whangarei. Is the WH is kind of pronounced like a f in Maori, so it's kind of Whangarei. Although other people call it Whangarei. Anyways, and we were up on a hillside looking down on it. It's a much smaller place, about 50,000. And so I had to go at the Magellanic Clouds, but it's still, even though it's a smaller place, still quite a lot of city lights. Just to show you, I took another picture looking west from where we were staying, and that's at about the same time. So, and that's not even looking over downtown. So there's a river down here in the foreground and then a highway along here. And this is just lights in these houses along the way and some street lights along the road. So quite a lot of light. And then you see the ridge rising out and over to the west. This turned out to be a really fascinating place. Again, we didn't know any of this stuff was here. So again, property of the city council, it's got a rolling ball clock. And so in this big place there, and they opened this one in 2022. And so just pointing out that the time here is 5:52 and 30 seconds at this point, and a ball is about to come here. And so what happens is the ball will get there, and then it will be at 45, and then the next ball arrives and it tilts that tray out, which empties it out, except one ball goes down here and adds one here. And then the same thing happens when this tray fills up. It drops one down onto this tray. And of course, at this particular point, it will empty that tray as well and drop one down here, because when this one's full and this one's full, it's 6 o'clock. And I just thought that was really fascinating. It was quite neat to stand there and watch this and watch the balls rolling around. You'll notice I mentioned the Clapham's National Clock Museum. Again, another thing that the Whangarei City Council owns is this clock museum over here, but more importantly outside is this huge sundial. So another one of my favorite sundials here. This one doesn't adjust for daylight savings time, so this is actually just past 8 in the evening when we came out from having, we had dinner in a restaurant nearby here, and I just couldn't resist taking a picture of it. And the ball clock is just over in this area as well. That clock museum is fascinating. Clapham really loved clocks and collected all sorts. And he ended up with literally thousands of them. And he bequeathed them to, well, I guess somebody who would care for them. So they built this really stunning building for it. And you go in and there are literally thousands of clocks in there. And it's quite amazing to see them all in different sorts from different places in the world. And it is a really fascinating place. Finally, the last thing I wanted to show you from here is, oh, one more thing is there. I tried to get a picture of Neptune, and I think I've got it right there, but you probably won't actually see it very well on the screens. But anyways, I wanted to try again to see what I could get and see if I could get some of the planets. So hopefully I did, but anyways, was this place. Now, I didn't know this was here either. The reason we went to this site was we went to the museum because they have a Kiwi house there. And so it's in this building here. And again, this is the Heritage Park there and belongs to the City Council. And so one of the things that in a Kiwi house is the Kiwi's a ground bird, and it's they're solitary and territorial, and so they participate in a captive breeding program because they are endangered because unfortunately they don't fly, so they have a tendency to get killed when they come into contact with people, i.e. getting run over and things like that. So what they do is they keep one of the younger males here while it's growing up, and they have the lights on all night in its little enclosure, so it will think it's daytime because they're nocturnal, of course. And so they turn the lights off during the day, and you can go in and stand in a darkened room with red lights and hopefully see it. And it's funny, there was quite a large group of us looking for it, and I could see it running or scurrying around in the back of its enclosure, but it wouldn't come forward. But luckily, quite a few people in the group left, and I think they were down to about 3 or 4 of us. I think 4 of us left there. And then it came out and had its food and made an appearance. So I saw it go quite close inside its enclosure. It's just basically a sheet of plexiglass away from me. And it was going to go off to, I think, the area around Napier, if I remember correctly. What is really fascinating about this site is that not only does it have that, it has some historic buildings, and then it's got a whole bunch of buildings for clubs and museums on this site. So if you look at this list of things, look what's there, including an amateur radio club. They have a regular New Zealand gauge historic railway club. They have a mini railway club that has small trains, and they have the astronomy club from this part of New Zealand. So that was quite a fascinating find. So we walked up to see that because I had looked at where were their planetarium in New Zealand, and I had discovered there was one there, but when I looked to see when we could go in, it was only on Saturday nights, and that wasn't going to work out. So I hadn't pursued it any further. And so, and as it turned out, one of the couples who work on this facility were there. So this is their facility there, and I think they pay a nominal rent to be on the property. So this is their what they call their club room, and with behind it the planetarium, and this is their observatory. And notice the roll-off roof rails, and notice that they have a Stonehenge scale model I took a picture of this sign because it shows a little better what is there. So here's the plan of the buildings, and notice the observatory roof goes in both directions. And they bought this Zeiss projector from the observatory in. Sorry, I'm talking too much. In Wellington, when they upgraded to digital. So these are some of the things they do. And I thought that was really quite fascinating. And because this person was there, she took me into the building to see the planetarium, and you can see some of the seats around the edge. It's quite a big room, but it only seats again about 20 some odd people. Here's a model of Stonehenge, and they have some descriptions of it, which I thought was quite interesting, including when various things happen. So they can use it as, I guess, a teaching tool there. And finally, they have a chart that's seen better days, but a chart of an analemma explaining what that is and how it happens. So I thought that was quite interesting because you don't usually see information about these. And so, quite fascinating. So that's what we encountered, and because this is just coming up to a couple of days before we came home. So going there, we didn't have a November the 10th, and coming back, we landed before we left, as it works out, because we left on the evening of the 11th and landed at noon on the 11th. It turns out New Zealand is only 3 hours difference from here if you ignore the day. So we actually found there wasn't too much jet lag because it was kind of like going to Ontario. So basically, like right now in New Zealand, it's just a little bit after 8:30. So it's 5:30 there, but it's tomorrow. Anyways. And just as a little bit, one other thing there, as you remember, Sam Lawler, if you heard her, said she's going to New Zealand, so she'll be speaking there on February the 3rd. So she will be there at that site as part of her tour. So thank you. That's what I have.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Any questions of Chris? Okay. I have one, Chris. You talked about the magnetic observatory. I think it was in Christchurch.
Yeah.
So and you referred to the south magnetic pole. In the days of compasses, I mean, did a compass point to the south magnetic pole?
Well, it does. It can on both ends, as I understand it. So one of the things you would do in orienteering there was to use the compass backwards, I believe. So you've got the set because you probably get now I don't know about that. I'd have to look into it, but I would imagine it would be a stronger influence on the southern end of your compass than the northern end.
Jeff,
go ahead.
The problem with a compass in the southern hemisphere is if you go down there, you have to weight the other side. A good compass, you'll probably see a little copper coil around the north side because the field in the northern hemisphere is dipping down. It's dipping up in the southern hemisphere, and so it'll bang against the glass. So you have to actually you have to have a very high bearing. There are compasses that are made to work in both hemispheres, or you have to actually weight it so that it doesn't bang against the glass. Because the magnetic field has a dip as well as a direction. But it's still going to point north. Doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
It always, the
needle end,
the needle end is always pointing north. The problem is the dip of the magnetic field.
So is that because the north magnetic pole is so much stronger? Like there isn't?
No, it's it's a dipole. The north points
Okay.
towards the north of the Earth. The
The
south points
to the
towards the south.
Of course.
And of course, in those days when they were attempting to get to the South Pole, that was one of their tools. So they had to know very accurately how to set it, because depending on the route they were taking, they probably had to recalibrate frequently, as I understand it, because of course, as soon as you go into our north, a compass becomes much less useful unless you know how to keep track of it, because you can find yourself north of the magnetic pole.
Right.
And then it's pointing the wrong way. It's not pointing anywhere near north. The declination in New Zealand is, I think, 25 or something like that. So it's fairly high, much higher than ours.
Interesting. David, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do actually. Chris, congratulations on your iPhone photography. I had a question though. They were all handheld, were they?
Yes. Yeah, I did take a little tabletop tripod with me, but I didn't generally have a table to put it on.
Okay.
And that would have meant getting down on the ground and trying to look up. And I just ended up trying to brace myself against something. So one of the pictures in Dunedin, for example, I'm braced against that telephone pole that's so
Right.
proper, so in there, it's just like I just held it there as, and you count to 3 and it tells you when it's finished. So
Yeah, one suggestion I would have for you is you can get monopods,
yeah,
quite small, and they're not as bulky as a tripod. But
no.
I'd like to see if you could use that, because you probably would get even better results than what
Oh,
you would
I would
get with a
expect
table.
so. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just a matter of, so I took, as I said, I took the tabletop one, and it sort of could work, but it just wasn't, I didn't have anything to put it on, unfortunately. No
Right.
table.
And it was congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I took a tripod with me, like for use for cameras and things, and stuff like that. That didn't take up much room and was fairly light but and that was quite useful. Uh,
Interesting.
Yeah, and the airline that we flew to between Auckland and Dunedin weighed everything. So yeah, it was good we had, because Air New Zealand didn't seem to care too much. They
There's always the bottleneck.
yeah. So my first experience on a more discount carrier, and it was a nice flight and everything, but yeah, they were weighing stuff, and so I including our carry-on. And I thought my backpack may be a little over weight, so I slipped out of the lineup of going up to have it weighed and marked, and loaded up the pockets of my jacket with stuff from my backpack, so, including like my water bottle and stuff like that, just so I wasn't overweight.
How was your legroom on the cost saving carrier?
That one wasn't too bad. It wasn't obviously what's happened here with some of them. It was an Airbus 320 Neo, and it was quite nice. It's an Australian airline, Jetstar,
Interesting.
and it was nice.
Any other questions people have of Chris?
Did you take binoculars?
I did have a small pair of binoculars, yeah, and I did use those a bit.
So how did the Magellanic clouds and
It certainly makes them pop out more, yeah.
yeah.
It was
Good.
I just had high hopes of Cromwell, but of course then they put this great big light up there, and it was kind of throwing things off, and it was fenced off, so you couldn't get into the orchard area. And anyways, in the first night we were in Cromwell, we had this incredible winds and rain and storms. So
Yeah, John and I, when we were Wendy, when we were in New Zealand, we were staying at a B&B that was basically in the farming area. That was the North Island, and we got lucky there, and we got some really good pictures of all the southern prizes that we wanted. So We did, but we just lucked out. I guess if you had more time, you could have planned for darker sites to stay
Yeah, well,
in
and more,
darker sites.
we only had the car on 2 trips. I didn't mention that at the beginning. So we had Dunedin to Greymouth we had a car, and then after Auckland we drove up into Northland.
Good.
Yeah.
Um,
It survived, yeah. But as I say, I think that's it's funny when you're driving along the highway there, the number of times they had arrows painted on the lanes to tell you to go, straight ahead on the left, and the right side was the other way. I don't know if Australia is like that, but it seems like it's a big issue in New Zealand, anyways.
Reg has a question.
I was intrigued by that beautiful refractor that you showed, and it was made by Grubb. The 48-inch telescope, the DAO, is made by Grubb Parsons.
Oh, okay.
So I think that the two telescopes have got shared DNA.
Yeah, very likely. And it's interesting to be using equipment that old and it still works. So credit to Wellington City Council for purchasing it in the first place.
Randy, did you have a photograph that you wanted to put up?
Well, I have Vince's photograph. So let's go back to sharing. Come on. I can do this. Share. And Vince.
Yeah, so that's for a birthday present for my father-in-law. He's quite enamored with the Horsehead Nebula. It was one of the first astronomy pictures he saw as a kid. So I've been trying to take this picture for his birthday to get it printed out and mounted for him. So I had some hopes to get some stacking done up at the DAO. But unfortunately, the telescope was not cooperating that night. So this is the best I can do from my backyard. I'm getting nailed by a lot of light pollution and whatnot. But this is done in a HS I prime palette. So I'm double stacking the sulfur channel single, or using sulfur channel for the green and the blue. I'm using the hydrogen on the red channel, and the I prime, the SDSS filter, I prime filter I'm using as the luminance channel. And it actually came out pretty good. There is a little bit of light pollution you can see in the corner that's kind of killing me there, but that's not bad for Hillside Mall area.
Yeah, well done.
It's fantastic.
That's a lovely photo.
Could I just say that Vince and I had an adventure trying to find a Horsehead.
Yep.
So I did a search in SkyX for the Horsehead, and I tried to slew it there, and the telescope started to go down point down into the floor before we said yikes and turned everything
I
off.
thought we'd agreed that that was intentional dust clearing.
Yeah. Right. So what happens is that there's a Horsehead Nebula in the SkyX calendar, but it's in the southern hemisphere. Horsehead is called IC434.
Yeah.
So we're smart too late.
Yeah.
Okay, and while I have the share going, at 11 this morning, well, it was around 12 that I looked at my Facebook, and I saw people talking about the possibility of a huge storm coming. And this point up here is about 90 nanotesla. So normally when you see this graph, this is you remember Sherry Butner gave a talk about this, I don't know, a year or two ago. And it's usually around, plus or minus 10 nanoteslas. And today the scale is 100. which I've never seen before. And so even early this afternoon, it was already scaled like that. This is this evening. Now, my recall is that when this red line is in the positive, it's not as good for seeing the aurora as when it's negative. But it does look like it's going that way. So, and this is at the Lagrange point. One thing that I did read today is usually from the explosion that you can see on the sun to aurora happening here is usually about 3 days. And it was 1 day with this storm. This is the biggest storm recorded since 2003. Since the Halloween 2003 auroral storm. There's, I just took a look at my Facebook just a second ago, and I've got tens of pictures coming in. So if you've trained your algorithm like I have, there's a lot of pictures, including in British Columbia. So tonight, you might not see it with your eyes, but try taking pictures with even with your iPhone, but any digital camera makes these colors pop. And we've got a really, really good chance. Try to get it a dark place, look north, and you might see, people are saying it's very purple. I forget what the purple means. Does anybody know?
Purple. Trying to remember now. It's not oxygen. Nitrogen, maybe? I don't know.
Anyway, I hope we have some wonderful pictures next week.
Wow. That's the current.
Great. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
we do it in here.
Oh, Dan
Go ahead, Dan.
looks like he's got something.
Oh, I just was curious. Could you actually see anything on the sun in terms of sunspot?
There's lots
patterns?
of spots. I
No,
went
but
to
there was a
Yeah,
huge, there was a huge explosion yesterday.
yeah, because I
What's
just took a picture
CME?
of
What's
the
it
sun
called?
today.
Oh,
Coronal
wonderful.
mass ejection. There's a
Yeah.
film you can see. It was like a huge one pointed straight at the Earth.
Okay, yeah.
Actually,
I just took an image.
Do we have time to see Dan's sun?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You
So,
want to see my
Dan,
son?
is this
No, not that sun.
Let's see. How am I going to share this? Oh dear. I'm sorry. I'm still kind of new to.
There should be a green button towards the
what is
bottom of your screen.
close button?
just a
Green
share?
button. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. I guess share
Should
this.
open on your screen. Oh,
Can everybody see this?
We see Orion.
Absolutely.
Orion Nebula.
That's my Orion. But then how do I get to the next picture? Oh, jeez, I'm so sorry. Photos.
Can you scroll through yours?
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Here we go.
Wonderful.
All right.
Yeah.
There it is.
Wow.
So that's what it looked like late this morning.
Well, it's that one in the
And-
middle. The satellite pictures have this incredible storm come right at us.
Randy, is it 4341?
Oh heavens!
Oh, you don't know the number? Okay. It looks like it's 4341.
What does that mean?
Oh, they number the sunspots.
Oh, how do I zoom in on this?
But
Widen your screen.
maybe next week we'll have lots of stuff.
Oh, there we go.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's a lovely
Yes.
photo, Dan. Thank you.
That's amazing photo.
Oh yeah, that's with my little dwarf 3.
Perfect.
I feel like I'm cheating every time I use it.
Well,
if it gives images like this, that's great.
Thing I will say is that I'm glad that Artemis 2 isn't out there right now.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
They get hosed.
well, that's a big deal. Like the reason that the Natural Resources Canada runs geomagnetic observatories is because space weather is a real threat to a lot of our navigation satellites and things.
Chris, what about the folks on the space station? You're muted, Chris.
They're toast.
I was playing with that. They're inside the Van Allen belts. It's
Okay, so they're shielded.
get out to closer to the moon or beyond. You're outside the Van Allen belts, and so you can get it. And I know that during I'm actually surprised nobody's talked about this in relation to Artemis too, but during Apollo they had quite a rigorous program of keeping an eye on the space weather and the radiation out there. And
Jeff,
yes,
we're going to have to shut down in the Fairfield. We got to shut down for the
okay.
custodians.
It's okay. So thank you, everybody. It's been really an interesting session. So we'll declare this the Astro Cafe over then for today. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye.